Datuk Syed. Apa yang telah saya lakukan di peringkat Urustia ialah kita sudah buat draft declaration. Jadi sambil delegates you give your points, which to me is not an analysis, it is more on what you propose to be incorporated into the declaration. Okay. Jadi dikontrol oleh Datuk Syed nantilah berapa minit you nak cakap, sebab kalau ikut negara, kalau semua ada di sini barangkali kita ada 7 negara yang akan berucap, and then kepada NGO dan juga mungkin perwakilan daripada IPT dan sebagainya. Tapi seperti yang saya sebut tadi, please raise up your hands, and then MC akan pergi ambil you nama dan dia akan pass over to Datuk Sri, then he will call your name. Once you call, then terpulang dia nak bagi you berapa minit, ya. Jadi itu yang kita cadang dilaksanakan dalam debate. Tapi apabila tetamu kita Syekh Fahmi ini sampai, dan kita akan stop, kita beri laluan untuk dia memberikan ucapannya, ya. Saya harap kita dapat selesaikan ini paling-paling pukul 5 petang untuk kita sempurnakan conference kita ni. Yang itu saya serah majlis kepada Datuk Syed, silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli wa la haula wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyil azim. Yang saya muliakan Cikgu Azmi daripada MAPIM, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. I have been given this responsibility to be the moderator, inshallah, for a session called Open Debate, and as explained by Cikgu Azmi, this open debate is about the opportunity to hear the opinion and the views of representatives, both by countries, by NGO. Now let us go back to the reason why we are here, is to do 2 things. Number 1 is to create an awareness about what's happening in Egypt. And alhamdulillah, I think this morning we had the opportunity to hear various perspectives of what's happening in Egypt. Then inshallah soon, hopefully our brother from Mesir will be here, from Iqwal Muslim, for us to further understand the sufferings and the brutality that is going on in Egypt. Now, beyond just creating a awareness, I think we all agree that talking alone is not going to make any difference. Many people talk about Egypt, about the suffering in Palestine, but it's not going to make an impact to our brothers and our sisters in Egypt. So what we like to do today, to the rest of the afternoon, the climax of the evening will be the declaration of what we believe should be the right thing to do, both either by verbal or by action and action plan. But before we conclude and summarize the declaration, which will be drafted by Cikgu Hamzmi himself, we would like to give the opportunity to the audience to perhaps give your view, either the view of your NGO, view of your position of your country, or view as an individual. I think we all agree that the collective effort of all Muslims will be much needed today. As an individual, we might not be strong enough to, topple or to make a difference in a scenario today, but I can assure you, a collective effort, I think, will have much more better impact. So today, alhamdulillah, we gather here in our humble mosque to perhaps deliberate and understand a topic that I think becomes our collective responsibility. And inshallah, in the next half an hour or so, we were trying to deliberate. What we're going to do today, Asar is about 4:30. We hope to finish our open debate and give our brother from Iqwal Muslim the opportunity to do. And we hope to stop before Asar, and the declaration will be after Asar. We will go to the prayer hall and pray Asar berjemaah with the Imam, then we'll come back So please, ladies and gentlemen, stay put. I think the climax of the day is to hear the deliberation and also to hear the declaration. Now, I will be trying to give everybody about maximum 5 minutes. And I would like to do not talk about Egypt anymore. I think we all understand. We would like to hear your views, your recommendation from your perspective, what should be done and what needs to be done, and what kind of support are you willing to give to make this cause more meaningful. I think the debate about Egypt is already, it's a foregone conclusion. We've already heard about the issue today, this morning. So I will call the representative. So brothers, once I call your name, I would like to invite you to the stage on the rostrum, and I will, give you a caution when the time is almost up, so that we can try to limit to the time schedule. So first on our list, by no means of important, by random, we have, inshallah, Brother Dr. Ahmad Sami Al-Qudsi from Palestine, who I think is more closer to us, realizing the impact on Misr, to give his views. Fadal, brother.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا وحبيبنا وقائدنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله إخواني أخواتي أن جمعنا في هذا اليوم المبارك في هذا المكان المبارك في مسجد من مساجد الله في ماليزيا الحبيبة. عودتنا ماليزيا على الاهتمام بقضايا المسلمين في شتى بقاع الأرض، فلقد شاركت الحمد لله هذه الأيام في فعاليات ونشاطات لإخواننا في مابيم حول قضية مصر، من دعاء ومن صلاة ومن قراءة ياسين ومن توعية حول ما يحدث في أرض الإسلام هناك في مصر. إخواني أخواتي الكرام، باسمي وباسم إخواني أشكر مابيم والقائمين على هذه الفعالية، لأنها فعلا هي رسالة طيبة وجيدة وإنسانية وسلمية، وإن شاء الله هي رسالة فعالة لهذه القضية إن شاء الله. إخواني أخواتي، ما يحدث في مصر الآن هو غيض من فيض، وهو قليل جدا مما نراه في بلدان أخرى، سواء كان في مانيمار أو كان في سوريا. فنسأل الله عز وجل أن يلطف بإخواننا وبإخواننا المعتقلين من حكومة الدكتور مرسي. وإن شاء الله إخواني أخواتي الكرام، نحن على يقين وعلى أمل كبير بأن إخواننا على حق وأن الله معهم، وإن شاء الله بفضل دعائكم ونشاطاتكم سوف نكون خير الداعمين وخير المساندين لما يحدث في مصر. فقضية مصر إخواني أخواتي الكرام هي ليست قضية العرب وحدهم أو المصريين وحدهم، بل هي قضية المسلمين جميعا، وقضية إنسانية بحتة عرفتها البشرية ورأتها بثا مباشرا على التلفاز وعلى شاشات الاتصالات الدولية. إخواني أخواتي الكرام، I want to say thank you for Malaysia. Alhamdulillah, I attend many activity for Mabim and in our university in Insania in Kadah. Alhamdulillah, Malaysia, they open the door to many activity to support Muslim issue in Palestine, if it is issue Palestine or Myanmar or issue Somalia or issue now Syria and Misr. Alhamdulillah, this is the good letter, the good the رسالة جيدة. Alhamdulillah, if in Kadah or in Kuala Lumpur, I saw many activity to salah, صلاة حاجة، دعاء، قراءة ياسين and كلية شريطة أبادي مصر. Alhamdulillah. In the last, I want to thank this program, and I want to tell Mabim thank you very much وجزاكم الله عنا كل خير. Terima kasih banyak. شكرا جزيلا.
Okay, thank you, Brother Ahmad Sami, and we'll try to summarize some of his points that he raised to our interpreter, and so that we can take the gist. Next, before we give our floor to the man of the hour who just arrived from overseas, I would like to invite our brother Bapak Dr. Taufik Wijaya dari Komite Nasional untuk Kemanusiaan dan Demokrasi Mesir daripada Indonesia. Dipersilakan, Pak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, for this occasion, Alhamdulillah, this morning we had already Mr. Suripto to convey our message, our thinking, and suggestions for the work through our NGOs, organizations, and individuals for Free Egypt. For this moment, I would like to stress 3 points that probably can be adopted in the joint statement or resolution. First, we need to form a common secretariat to make our work effectively and efficiently, because we are coming from different countries, different NGOs, backgrounds. So we need to form really a common secretariat, either in Kuala Lumpur, because this conference initiated by the brothers, the NGOs in Malaysia. So this is the first one. And the second one, it was mentioned about the brutal killing and the massacre in Egypt, that those who are responsible for this should be brought to justice. So we would like the international community mobilize their respective governments from their own countries to forward resolution to the UN Security Council that the military regime in Egypt should be brought to justice and then held in the case at the International Criminal Court. And we, as NGOs, non-government organizations and individuals, should also bring this case to the Human Rights Security Council, Human Rights Council in the UN, and demanding to form the Commission of Inquiry for this purpose. So these are 3 points that I'd like to forward to you all. Hopefully it can be incorporated or adopted in the resolution. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Dr. Taufik. 3 points was raised, and I think the first point is quite relevant. If you want to be collective in our voice, I think this coordination, it becomes very important, and this is not only coordination with the countries, coordination among the NGOs in Malaysia is also very important. Sometimes we do speak, but we don't speak in one voice, you know. I think time has come for us to try to make a collective effort, then perhaps this can be incorporated. As far as the others, I think we all have to do our part to pressure our respective government to make a position stand, particularly writing a memorandum to United Nations Security Council to take the necessary action, on the atrocities that's happening today in Egypt. Inshallah, after this, I would like to invite our brother, Mr. Jamal Abdul Nasir Ahmad from Cambodia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya, saya bertutur dalam bahasa Melayu. Pertama kali saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada penganjur utama iaitu Mabim kerana memberi peluang dan untuk kita semua hadir di sini. Okey. Sekarang kita bersidang mengenai isu Mesir. Sebenarnya isu Mesir ini bukannya isu Mesir saja, tapi malah isu umat Islam seluruh amnya maksudnya. Macam mana dibentang oleh pembentang-bentang kita sebelum ini. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Walan tarda 'ankal yahudu walan nasara hatta tattabi'a millatuhum. Ini ayat ini jelas. Allah memberitahu bahawa Yahudi ini dan Nasrani ini musuh kita. Dia tidak akan redha dengan apa saja yang kita buat. Walaupun kita buat secara demokrasi ke apakah, selagi kita tak ikut mereka, mereka tidak akan redha. Ini bukannya peperangan politik, tapi ialah peperangan agama sebenarnya. Tapi kenapa Mesir Presiden Mursi digulingkan? Bukannya kerana Sisi, bukan kerana Al-Sisi, bukan. Semua kita ada tahu. Kerana siapa sebenarnya? Yahudi dan Nasrani di belakang mereka. Itu. Jadi perbincangan kita sekarang ni, kita dah tahu, dah terang-terang. Allah dah bagi tahu walan tarda angkal Yahud. Terang-terang dah tahu, semua dah tahu. Tapi masalah sekarang, apa tindakan kita untuk menyelamatkan Mesir, bumi Anbiya, pusat ilmu untuk bagi umat Islam. Itu. Jadi sekurang-kurangnya kita berbincang. Saya pun tidak arif dalam perkara ini. Itulah kita berbincang macam mana kita nak bertindak untuk umat kita di Palestin dan di Mesir. Setiap individu Islam, jika tidak merasa diri dia apabila nampak umat Islam lain dibunuh, disiksa, walaupun bukan Islam sendiri pun, kita kena ada hati simpati. Walaupun binatang, dalam Islam kita tak boleh bunuh binatang dengan sengaja-sengaja, haram hukumnya. Apatah lagi kita bunuh manusia. Seperti mana Rasulullah SAW bersabda, laisa minna man lam yahtam bi amril muslimin. Jadi kita harap-harap kita sekurang-kurangnya ada hati dan berdoa untuk umat Islam kita di sana. Sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Thank you, Brother Jamal Abdul Nasir from Cambodia. In essence, I think he was trying to take our attention that the issue in Egypt is not about Egypt alone. I think it goes, about the issue of the Ummah, in the world. Egypt, Palestine, Myanmar, and other parts who've been oppressed. And we all know, as debated by our brother Muhyiddin and others, it's just beyond what's happening with the military, but the forces behind them, particularly the Jews in Israel. So we all know it's not only about the people in Egypt, but it's about the religion. So I think we all have a collective responsibility to make sure that whatever we can do in terms of jihad, by voice, by dua, by having this kind of conference, we have a responsibility. And we must condemn all the killing, as our brother recited the Quran. It is sinful to be killing a Muslim. And we can understand, perhaps not understand or tolerate, but we could comprehend Christians and Muslims or other parts of religion. But this is killing among the Muslims is something that, it's very unfortunate. So he echoed that there's a need to resolve a proper action plan, and hopefully today, we can have some conclusion. I would like to have one more speaker, inshallah, before we stop, because we all cannot wait to hear our brother Ahmad Fahmi Al-Watidi, who just arrived. I think we would like to give the opportunity for him to speak a bit more time. When he's finished, inshallah, we have time before Asr. We will try to continue with the open debate, and perhaps not only the other delegates, but all the rest of the audience. For our last person to give their comment, I would like to provide, inshallah, a different perspective, someone very far away who mashallah, came all the way to Malaysia. Our sister Mona Dirovic from France, an NGO, Hamib, that basically helps Burmese Muslim that's based in Paris. And inshallah, perhaps we would like to hear the perspective of our sister from France about what's happening with it. Please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I will give to you my suggestion about what we can do for Egypt. But I have to explain to you first what I'm thinking about what's happening now in Egypt. My opinion is just Zionist project. It means Israel want to be bigger. So they would like to divided Muslims in all over the world. That's why they destabilized Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Iraq, many countries, many Muslim countries in the world, just because they want to be bigger and they want to be more power with the help of America. And what I see is media also divided Muslims all the time. In France, you can see bad news about Muslims killing Muslims, and at the end we have in our ummah there is big problem. We are really divided. For example, my background, I come from Tunisia, and in France you have many African people come from North Africa, and you can listen people say we don't like Algerian or we don't like Tunisian. They are all themselves Muslims. So the problem is that we are completely divided. If we are not able to work all together in unity, I think it will be hard for Egypt to take solution. And when I'm talking about Muslims' problem in the world, all the time I cannot stop make the link about what's happening now in Burma. I'm very disappointed to see how we are so weak, because there is genocide now in Burma and nobody speak about this. There is only few people make activist life. Our brothers and sisters, they are in a very bad situation. I was in Arakan in 2012, November, and they make concentration camp in Sitwe. They are not allowed to move. They don't have food, they don't have medicine, even shelters. People dying every day. And the thing is, it's very hard in Europe to speak about this Rohingya case just because it's Muslims killing, it's Buddhists killing Muslims. In Europe, they have the beautiful view of Buddhists, of peace, and they are shocked to know about what's happening in Burma. So if we can be all united, maybe we can help also Rohingya. But I think it's really time to take care about these people, because all the time we can see speeches for Egypt, for Tunisia. It's nice because, I mean, they are persecuted, but also many people forget our Rohingya brothers and sisters, and not only about Rohingya. If you see in Burma, last few months ago, they attacked other Muslims like Mektila, Lashio, Wakan. So there is also emergency in Burma. So here there is many people come from many countries. You have more power than me. I'm used to be just accountant. I'm not a political woman. But if you in your country can do something, I think also, it's time to do something. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sister Mona. Obviously, I think we just want to pick a new point that she had highlighted. I think the role of the media. I think the role of media is becoming more and more stronger today. And obviously, you know who control the media, the mainstream media. And so whatever you watch on CNN and all that, you know, it's not all truth. So we as educated Muslim, we need to digest what we get, what we hear from various sources to make sure that we get and make the right opinion. And the media has a very important role to either, play and topple the government. So I think all the media are basically controlled by the West, and we have to be very careful in terms of what we extract from the media and before we form our own conclusion into what's happening. And I think debates like this will give you an opportunity to get a different perspective. Perhaps to touch what my sister Mona said about Myanmar, yes, we do acknowledge. If MAPIM and our brothers here do have activities, we do send aid and people to Myanmar, particularly to the state of Arakan. We are trying to do the same to what we are doing in Arakan to the people in Gaza and also in Misr. So perhaps, a later part you can, be in touch with our brother here in front, who is, collating all the activities of Myanmar so that we can perhaps combine, our resources, Malaysia and also from France. Now I would like to take a break here from the open debate because we really like to hear, so to speak, from the people that really understand. None other than Brother Ahmad Fahmi Al-Watidi, which is the spokesman from the Freedom and Justice Party. I think he would be able to tell us in more detail, and perhaps we'll take your time, Brother Fahmi, as much time as you want, Yaqi. And I would not like to take any more time. The floor is yours. And please, brothers and sisters, let's pay some special attention to our special guest. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, al-ukhwa wal-akhawat, I'm very delighted and honored to be with you. We put our brotherhood in a practical way. When I see different countries and brothers from many countries sitting, sympathizing with their brothers far away from a long distance, that reminds me with the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم. The example of Muslims is like one body in their sympathy, kindness. إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالحمى والسهر. If one organ complains, all the body recalls and answers for help. This is the case. The case for Egypt, the case for Syria, for Burma, for Tunisia, and for all Muslims all over the world. And this is a fundamental concept in our religion, in Islam. So I would like to thank you very much first for gathering here, for coming here to listen, to analyze, to listen to the facts, not the fictions of the media. I've been 48 days in Rab'a al-Adawiyya with my brothers over there, so I can tell you what is happening exactly in Egypt. I would like to thank also our brothers in the Islamic Party here, Al-Hizb al-Islami, for their invitation and their kindness and hospitality by inviting us to share with you these sessions and with other also sessions. Before I start also, would like to let you know that Egypt as a country is an Islamic country. It's not a secular country, it's not something else. It's an Islamic Arabic country. It's a very strategic and central also country in position, geographically, socially, politically, and religiously, and in the history. It's the land of prophecy. If you read the history of Prophet Ibrahim, the name of Egypt is mentioned. Prophet Yusuf is mentioned. Prophet Muhammad is mentioned. Many prophets, they passed across. Prophet Moses, they The whole story was there. So, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Prophet, says that Egypt has the best soldiers, khayrul ajnad al-ard, the best or the best of the soldiers ever on earth, according to the hadith narrated from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you read the Islamic history also, you will find that the armies went to defend the Islamic land and to provide the victory was always, and most of the time, starting from Egypt. And the last was Baytul Maqdis returned on Salah ad-Din's hands, and the armies were there from Egypt. So they are really khayru ajnad al-ard. For that and for many reasons, Egypt is very special for the Islamic countries and Islamic nation all over the world. We have been in the history for the last 60 years before the 25th of January, ruled by army and by military over the 60 years after 52 revolution. There was no something called democracy. There was no something called justice. There was no something called freedom in its real meaning. It was all fake, literally fake. Oppositions were not allowed to politically practice in terms of parties in Egypt. Not either to practice on the media by saying their voice or raising their voice there during the 3 presidents ruled Egypt before 25th of January. Was no freedom for Islamists. We used to be questioned and stopped at the airport for entrance and exit, entry and exit from the country. Years of jail for the opposition parties and for the Islamic parties in particular. A lot of martyrs over there were sacrificed for the sake of freedom and democracy. Tens of years of jail and prisons for the opposition parties, calling for real democracy and freedom. There was a lot of sacrifice all over these years. I'm not biased to say that was in majority presented by the Muslim Brotherhood, but that was a reality with other also opposition parties, but the majority were from Islamists and from the Muslim Brotherhood in particular. And all people, they know that very well. Till the moment of 25th of January was there, was not, I would say, was a result of the movements, of the demonstrations, of the fights all over the years. This was the result of the change that should have happened, and we were expecting it. But the time, I tell you honestly, nobody would tell you that 25th of January was known to the Egyptians or to the nations that it's gonna happen, it's gonna be a turning point in the history of Egypt. No. It starts by call of movements all over the country for freedom and for justice. Social justice, freedom, democracy. And that call turned to be a real change. Millions of Egyptians from all parties, all over the country, all representatives, not only Islamists, all Egyptian nations, they really came for freedom and stood for freedom 18 days till it happened to remove this dictatorial regime of Mubarak. And after that, there was, of course, the Supreme Council of Armed Forces who start to take care, temporary as they announced, And they were really, well, quite irritating but annoying the people there in the nation. We haven't made the change of 25th of January for the SCAF or the Supreme Council of Armed Forces to rule Egypt. But we need to make a real change in the history of Egypt. So they were under the political pressure. They were obliged to resign and submit the administration to a civil administration for the country through a democratic process. For the first time in the history of Egypt, imagine, the first democratic election of the parliament happened in Egypt. Before, we used to hear the numbers of 99.9 for Mr. President. Before, nobody would have been eager to share and participate or vote because he knew very well, as a matter of fact, that it will be corrupted and fabricated. For the first time in the history of Egypt, as a citizen, I feel that my vote is going to make a change, a real change in Egypt. That our country is back to us. This was the feeling of all Egyptians. For the first time, there was a constitution in Egypt. For the first time, there was a first democratically elected civil president in Egypt, who was Dr. Mohamed Morsi. And I tell you really that people were very happy. They were inspiring the freedom and justice and smelling the freedom coming into the country for the first time over the last 60 or more years. This is true. But let me tell you, because who was elected fairly, transparently by the Egyptians was Dr. Mohamed Morsi, who declared from day one that he will never be in the pocket of America or Russia or any country. He will be for the country. He will be for real democracy and justice. He will never be biased to any side. He will take care of the Egyptian benefit, Islamic benefit, and for the country benefit, to regain the position of the country amongst the Islamic world and Arab world and international community, to build up the finance and to rebuild the country again, reformation of the country, and bring up everybody in a real political practice, transparent, democratic. For everybody, he can participate, he can say yes or no. He stayed 1 year. He never shut down any channel, TV channel. The TV channels of the oppositions were funded by milliards, billions of dollars, day and night, to unpolitely criticize him in a totally unfair way, fabricating facts, turning upside down facts, masking all his achievements, firing on Islamists, firing on Muslim Brotherhood, on freedom, justice parties, and anybody with Morsi. That was going on for 1 year continuously. He never shut down a single TV channel. And he was always asked by the nations, Mr. President, why you are too patient on them? Put them in jail. They are violating the law, which states that they had to respect the president. But he was too patient on them. The deep state continues to work. If I speak to you about the deep state, you wouldn't imagine how much work and network in the governmental sectors of the country were there. They were intercommunicating and running their own benefits, personal benefits. Billions also and millions of dollars were there. And of course, if you come to stop this corruption, they have to fight for their benefits. So the deep state in police, in intelligence, in the governmental services, in the media, in the even foreign affairs abroad, everywhere, they wouldn't stop competing and fighting Morsi. To the degree that the police, around 50% of them, officers, generals, they announced it, we are on vacation till Morsi resigns or disappears. Like this, frankly. And also in the army. I'm telling now that the army is totally corrupted, but there is a big sector of good people there, for sure. Those are our brothers and sisters and sons and cousins. The Egyptian army is from the soil of Egypt. And we always say that. And we put still our confidence on that. That if the American generals would corrupt, would take it somewhere, it has to return it back to its position and its function, to defend the country and to be fair and not to interfere with the political process. In addition to that fight, which they call the failure plan for Morsi. The failure plan started from day one Morsi was elected, and the army candidate, who was Mr. Shafiq, failed. So when the SCAF, resigned, they resigned just in front of people, but coming down to the work, they were working against Morsi. They would never let it go. You can imagine that 40% of the budget of Egypt is for the army. And America has planned over the last 40 or 50 years to make them financially independent to the degree they were not questioned by the parliament. And one statement in the constitution, in the new constitution of Dr. Morsi, was to question them through a special committee formed from the parliament. Because it's a right of the nation to know what is going on and where is the money going. And they were objecting to that. So from day one, the SCAF resigned. They start to plan this failure plan for Morsi. And they formed inside what is called Salvation Front, Jabhatul Inqadh, Tamarrud, Rebel Front, and different political cover for their work. And one day they came up in the street with something called the black blocs. And these black blocs turned to be some thugs covering the whole country, fighting here and there. And they were attacked by the Egyptians, by the citizens. They start to have fights against them. They start to combat them together with some faithful police officers. And that they changed into, after that, so Salvation Front, Black Bloc, then followed by Rebel Front. These are political covers for the deep state work. I'm saying this was happening on the land of Egypt. And that was supported by the international community as well. The international community, America stopped watching. USAID was on hold. Also, European Union was holding the fund. And very shameful Arab countries, and you know them, you name them, they also stopped supporting. The money was paid for Mubarak day and night, but for Morsi, no. And he put a lot of effort to tell them the truth, that we are here together. We are here to build up the country. We are here to put our hands together as Islamic countries for the future of our nations. He visited Saudi Arabia 3 times. And he visited Qatar as well. But Qatar was supported to some extent. Comparatively was really in a good situation in support of Egypt. But most of the Arab countries stopped, Europeans, Americans, so they were putting the siege around Egypt. They were strangulating and constricting the financial situation in Egypt. You can imagine when the fuel station is paid 50,000 Egyptian pounds to stop providing fuel for customers, so that all the cars lines up for 2 to 3 kilometers in the street. This was paid for by the deep state for days. The garbage companies had the same, they had been paid money for them day and night to have piles of garbage in the streets that looks ugly, and everybody shouts on Morsi, oh, this guy's failed. But that was true happening. This was truly happening. I'm telling you the truth. So if you have the officers who stopped working because they are objecting that Morsi, this was a deep state plan, and you have in the streets lines of cars, traffic problems, garbage problems, security problems, that was planned. That was fabricated crisis in Egypt. And I was telling everybody, if the government and Dr. Morsi were given 1/10 of what was given to the previous governments, they would have achieved miracles to Egypt. Tremendous achievements. But that was not the case. Because America, Israel planned to fail this man. You have said it just in the previous speakers. It is not the story of Morsi. It's a story of Islam in the region. Not to touch or to roll this country or other countries, because they know what will happen if they run it fairly for the sake and the benefit of the nations and Muslims in the world, for humanity and for the justice and for democracy and for legitimacy. All these they don't need it in this country. I tell you honestly, frankly, they don't need it. So you were not surprised that this coup happens. It came after it's a well-planned coup by the intelligence, US intelligence, Egyptian intelligence, army generals, police generals, deep state people and business people, billionaires supplying money, media, all together with international support, with regional support. That happened. And you can understand why people they are playing this very clearly. When this coup happened, you know the first word that came from US ambassador over there, game is over. Game is over. My rule here in Egypt, this is the ambassador, my role in Egypt has finished, has come to end. This is Ann Patterson, the US ambassador. And when we came to negotiate, to tell people what happened is never a democracy, is never a legitimacy. This is the first democratically elected legitimate president. Why you take him with forceful disappearance? Nobody knows where is he. No contact with his families. No contact with his people. He was isolated completely. All the channels were shut down completely. All opposition channels or Islamic channels, more than 12 channels were done. All the leaders were put in jail immediately. And you call this democracy? And you call this a correction of the pathway of democracy in Egypt, as they claim, as they try to advertise in the media? And I tell you honestly, a good group of Egyptian citizens has been deceived by this. For the first week in Rabaa al-Adawiyya, we were only the Islamists and Muslim Brotherhood there. And after the 3rd of July, I tell you honestly, after the massacres, after the bloodshed from the army weapons, from the army tankers, from the helicopters, from the snipers, from with the gas bombs and tear bombs, I tell you, people start to wake up and know this is a bloody military coup. It's never a democracy. But people who understand from the very beginning that's a well-planned coup. And we sensed, we felt really that this is coming. Unfortunately. This is planned for Egypt. This is planned for Islam. This is planned for the region. And this is the case. So people decided for peaceful, open sit-in, continuous, persistent, resilient, giving their souls day and night. They're never afraid. They never be afraid. Wallahi, at the day, there was more than 50 or 100 or 150 and more than 6 or 7 massacres following each other. The millions, they were pushed in and, flooding Rabaa al-Adawiyya day and night in the streets of Egypt. People that has supplied their will, has wakened up them to stand up and to call for their freedom, to regain it again. At that time they felt, after the sacrifice, after more than 20,000 wounded persons, and many of them are in a critical, still in critical. But that happened. And that was the price for the freedom. That's why we are telling people. And after they lost hope that this open, peaceful sit-in, they advertise fakely in the media that this is how they have weapons there, they are armored. Never. As a person, if I go to the open sit-in, I have to be checked 3 times. One for my ID, one for my bag, and one personal checkup. 3 times. And people, delegates came from European, from African, from American, from Human Justice. They came to visit and they documented that this is an open, a real open, peaceful sit-in. That really annoyed them because it conveyed the message all over the world. There is a big problem and big crime regarding Egypt. The army has done. This is a military coup. That's why the international situation has been moving and changing gradually. Some countries, they declared it, like South Africa, like Turkey, like Qatar, like the African Union, and like the Peace and Justice Committee of the African Union, like Tunisia, like Venezuela, Argentina. And of course, you know, the countries who planned this coup, of course, they have to congratulate from day one, from hour one, and they came to Egypt. Number one, Israel. Number two, unfortunately, Arab countries, 1, 2, 3, 4. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Emirates, of course. And there were reports addressed in the media of the security generals of those countries meeting and preparing together with the Egyptians before it happens, before the coup, before the 30th of June and before the 3rd of July. When they came to President Morsi to meet him, he refused to meet those delegates from these countries, from the Arab countries. They went to the jail to meet some leaders over there, Mr. Khairat Shater and others. And he told them, you deceived us, you stabbed us from our back. We were very honest and sincere from day one that we are for this country, not for anything else. But they started, oh, this is gonna rule by jihad people, by Ikhwan people, and they're gonna take the country for their own irhab, terrorism. And under the name of terrorism, we are the terrorists, not them. We use the bombs, we use the snipers, we use the tankers, we use the automatic guns, we use the helicopters, we use the tear bombs, we use the bird shots, and we hammer the nation. We killed more than 500, 600 people. We killed more than 3,000 in the last one. To dissolve and, you know, finish this Rabaa al-Adawiyya open sit-in. We put 20,000 in jail. Those are the terrorists. Those are the real terrorists. We closed the 12 channels. Those are the real terrorists. We put all opposition party leaders in the prison, under jail. We restricted and prevented thousands of people from leaving the country under arrest. Are those, who is the terrorists? Those who stood 48 days and still running in peaceful demonstrations in the streets. And they know that the thugs and the police and the snipers from the seals of the higher buildings, they are shooting the citizens. Wallahi, I've been seeing them close to us day and night, but they never stop people. I tell you, don't think that people will get afraid. They go more. And they wake up more people, not only Islamists. At the last 2-3 weeks of Rabaa al-Adawiyya open sit-in, more than 60% of people were non-Islamists, were from ordinary Egyptian citizens. They came to fight for their freedom and democracy and to regain the legitimacy for the country. This is what is happening in Egypt. There is a very high spirit. There is a high movement. There is a very great will to regain the country back from the army. And I tell you honestly, we feel that it's gonna happen, inshallah. It's gonna happen soon, inshallah. Because we believe that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is preparing the ummah, the nation, Egyptians and non-Egyptians, for a big rule, a great rule coming over, inshallah. Why people are in a 48 days continuously open sit-in, praying, fasting, in a dhikr, in a dua, in a fight, in a sacrifice, looking for shahada, inshallah, for everybody, ladies, girls, youth, elderly people, professors, scientists, leaders, everybody in the country. What a kind of preparation for the country. What a kind of education and preparation for values. These great values will never settle inside the citizen in every and each citizen, except with this preparation. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is preparing the country for a great rule, inshallah, coming. And we feel that's coming. What is the current situation? Just to finish my speech and open for discussion, inshallah, and questions. What is our vision? Is to continue in that open demonstrations all over the country. Open, peaceful demonstrations with millions and millions of people all over the country. Till we may reach a civil disobedience, partial or all, but we have to prepare the nation for that. There is no single army weapon there with people, because this is not our concept or our fundamental. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. We have been peaceful 83 years of work, and will never carry a single gun or shoot a single gunshot for our rights. But it's gonna be very peaceful all over the country. We will sacrifice for that. We need an international cooperation and pressure from you. The message you should carry to everybody, the facts, not the fictions. There are tens of channels working with fictions and fakes and corrupted news day and night. Please be careful. And also warn and alarm your colleagues and your media and your societies all over the countries. Every one of you should carry this message. Media has to play a great role, whether TV channels, satellite channels, whether electronic media, which is very important. You should take the message to people that this is not the truth. The truth is that this is a bloody military coup who has stolen the democracy and legitimacy from Egypt, and people there in an open, peaceful sit-in. They are never terrorism. They are never terrorists, because the official channels of Egypt advertising, fighting terrorists. And you know their definition for terrorist is you and me, is Islamists. That's never the case, and will never be the case. Islam is peace. But they're trying to make it like this, fabricating to justify their work. Thirdly, human rights. Human justice courts also, and international justice courts. Amnesty International, human rights, you name it, all these NGOs and non-governmental organizations for justice and for human rights has to be. We have to file a lot of cases. People are working. You should work from your country. You should raise complaints here and there also. And also pressures on the governments. Number 4, pressures on the governments. They have to change their situation. They have to review their situations towards the truth, towards the democracy, especially our country. Many of them, they fight for values. So this is a value of democracy, the value of freedom, the value of justice, the value of legitimacy. All these countries should stand for these situations. You are not less than South Africa as a country. South Africa decreased the political representation in Egypt. They called the Egyptian ambassador to question him. The African Union has frozen the Egyptian membership in the Peace and Council and Justice Council of Africa, which is founded by one of the countries. Egypt was one of the major countries founding this, but in spite of that, they have frozen their membership, because they know this is against the rules, against their values. So we need our governments to stand. We need to take the message to the government. We have to review our situations. By this, there will be a strong international cooperation and situation and position, and that will help us a lot. And finally, you pray for us in your dua. Pray for your brothers all over the world, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gift them with the freedom and justice to work freely to reform the country, to rebuild the country, which is a strategic and central country in the Islamic nation and Islamic world. We are sure at the end that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never spoil these efforts. The more bloodshed is done, the more freedom is coming, the more right is coming, the more legitimacy is coming. It will never be spoiled. It is saved for this, inshallah. And we are sure that this day is very near. ألا إن نصر الله قريب ألا إن نصر الله قريب ولقد سبقت كلمتنا لعبادنا المرسلين إنهم لهم المنصورون وإن جندنا لهم الغالبون أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وجزاكم الله خيرا. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much, Brother Ahmad Fahmi Al-Watidi. Maybe, brother, you can sit here and inshallah. We still have some time before Salat Asr, and perhaps taking the opportunity, I'm sure, given the day, I'm sure Brother Fahmi will, will continue to tell us about the real situation, and I, for one, have a better understanding of what's happening. In Nakabal Europa, what you hear in the press is far different from what Brother Fahmi is saying. So perhaps I'll open it to the floor. I think it's a good opportunity to have an open dialogue. Anybody that have any question that wants to know more from brother here, what's happening, the reasons behind what's happening in Egypt, please free. We have about maybe 7 or 8 minutes before Asr. Anyone? Take this golden opportunity. Yeah, brother from the Deputy Minister from Cambodia. Yes.
Thank you very much for the question. And in fact, if you come to the fact, they don't dislike Ikhwan for themselves. They are afraid from a model to be built up in the region. They are afraid that this model of freedom, of legitimacy, of democracy will come to the region, will be presented standing successfully in front of them. That means a lot, that they will lose. This is the whole thing. That's why it's a big battle for them. Yeah.
Yes. Any other question? Anybody? Yeah, Major.
My simple question is, if they don't want Morsi last 1 year, why they struggle to step down Mubarak?
Can you say it again, because I didn't.
They struggle to step down Mubarak after 30 years of governing the Egypt. After that, Morsi took over. Why they struggle for 1 year to step down Morsi?
Why 1 year? They want to step down Morsi after Mubarak. The question has to be directed to them. If you are looking for democracy, real democracy, and this guy is democratically elected for 4 years for the first time in Egypt, if they want to make a change, they have to give him a full chance to reform the country, to build up the country, to fight against corruption, and to prevent or to bring up his plan, his renaissance plan to the country, up in reality. And he hasn't been given the chance for even a full year of movement. So this was our argument with the people. They went to him before the coup, and they told him, Mr. President, we need to make a referendum on the president, presidential referendum, whether you're going to continue or not. And he objected. The only disagreement between him and them and the military was this point, because he told them, if I am a democratically elected, and you know that, and the whole world know that, and the government knows that I'm democratically, transparently, fairly elected by 52%, why should you run a referendum on me after 1 year? I should be given 4 years, a full term by constitution. And they wouldn't allow him to go for that. So that was the reason for the coup, because he objected. They were pressurizing him too much. And I think that can declare the intention of this coup. They don't like him to stay or to continue, whatever. I tell you honestly.
Okay, any other question? Yeah, Sagar. Okay, Mike. Use the mic.
Hey, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I just have one question. There is rumors saying that Mursi is working for his party, not for the country. What is your comment?
I will answer this question in a practical way. When Morsi came to the president position, was elected, he assigned 4 assistants for the president. Only one of them is Muslim Brotherhood, and one is from the Salafist group, and one from independent group, and the fourth one was Christian, independent Christian. These are the 4 assistants, 1 out of 4. When the first assigned parliament, the first elected parliament, Muslim Brotherhood represented 37 or 35%. When the first government came, and that was a technocrat government, there was only 5 ministers, 5 out of 37 from Muslim Brotherhood, and the rest were from other parties or independent technocrats. When the second change happens at the level of the government, there were only 8 or 9 ministers in the whole government out of 37. You can imagine. This is a real answer. If you come to the governments, to the governors, there were 27 governors. Out of them, there were 4 or 5 only from the Muslim Brotherhood. And the 24 or 23 or 22, they were independent. They were generals. They were from the other political parties. And if you come down to the municipalities and others, they were all from the old regime. He just changed a few positions of them, the very dominant corrupted ones. So he was in the beginning of a fair change and fair fight against corruption, not just to assign his Muslim Brotherhood. Tell me about the army. How many Muslim Brotherhood? Big zero, big O. Because the Muslim Brotherhood, they are prevented, even during the Morsi's time, from going into the army. By intention. They were prevented from going into the police. Anybody, his father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, cousin, third-degree relation, relates to Islamists or Muslim Brotherhood whatsoever, is not entitled to go into the police or the army till now and during the Morsi's time. So this is the real answer, that it was a real deep state working against him, and it's a fake rumors rather than real. It's a fiction.
Thank you, brother. Muhyiddin belakang. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's a good question, because we need to, the Salafist groups in Egypt, they are not one group. They are not only in Hizb al-Nur, because it's a general understanding that Hizb al-Nur represents Salafist parties. Let me tell you, brother, that more than 70% of the Salafist group, they are with Morsi. They were with us in Rab'a al-Adawiyya. Because first, the Hizb al-Nur was shattered into 2 parties, Al-Watan parties and Hizb al-Nur, which is persistent now. And Al-Watan party, the leader of Al-Watan party was Mr. Abdul Ghafoor. He was the assistant of the president. So he's supporting the president till now. And there is another party called the Asala party. It's another Salafist group. And all the scholars, because Salafs, they have scholars, they have schools, and they have a lot of people around them. They are entirely almost supporting Dr. Morsi. So there is only Hizb al-Nur, which raises a big question mark. there is a big question mark on that manipulation. When they presented the coup to the people, they took, unfortunately, Sheikh Al-Azhar to stay there, who supported the army. With a very shameful situation for Al-Azhar as a leader for all Islamic world. And they put beside him the big Pope of the Orthodox in Egypt, Tuatros. And on the other side, there was Mr. Baradi and Hizb Nur. So that can tell you that people who has their own interest, and they give, unfortunately, an Islamic religious cover and political cover for this coup. Sorry? Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Question from. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My question is, where is Dr. Morsi now? And is it the Ikhwanul Muslimin leader managed to meet him? And is it any instruction or plan from him to Ikhwanul Muslimin leader?
We don't know where is Dr. Morsi now. And this is the story. Even when Ashton went to visit him, when the African Union delegates went to visit him, there was no even declaration of his place. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Let's repeat Adhan inshallah and we'll answer the question. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So brother, we don't know where is Dr. Morsi. This is part of the crime. His family lost contact or they don't have any contact with him. his cabinet, the 10 people taken with him, 4 of them were sent to the prison right now, and 6 still we don't know where are they. They filed the cases against them. The political leaders, whether of Muslim Brotherhood, of Islamist parties, of Bina and Tanmiya, the other Wasat party, there are many leaders that they were taken now in prison right now. And there are thousands of people taken from the demonstrations and open sit-in. They are also in jail and in detention units and in army camps. We don't know their situation right now. We are now in Egypt under the rule of emergency. And the rule of emergency, you can put the knife on the neck, you can shoot anybody at any time. There is nothing called justice, there is nothing called civil justice, there is nothing. It's just the army and the weapons ruling Egypt right now. And we have the restriction of 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So nobody can even move. But I tell you honestly, people, they have broken the siege of fear. They go for demonstration till 10 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the evening, regardless of any disregarding anything, because they know this is their rights. And we filed cases internationally and locally and African, and European, and American. We need also in Asia. We need to generate this pressure on the NGOs, on the international human justice and human rights, on the international courts, on the international governments, on the Security Council, European Union, name them. We need to generate this. When they hear from you and from all countries all over the world, they call. And I think they're gonna wake up, they're gonna recognize that this is a major problem. People will never let it go. They are sacrificing for it. And this is part of our rule now. Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are a little bit running out of time. Brother Ahmed Fahmi will be here inshallah until tonight. I think we do have some opportunity, and maybe that's also an incentive for you to stay until tonight to hear our brother and to hear a bigger forum. What we're going to do, inshallah, we're going to continue a little bit, and we'll all collectively after this will go for our prayer together. What we're trying to do is to stop the session here. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to call the other 3 gentlemen to give their views. For the interest of time, we want to make sure that some people have other places to go. What we're going to do after this is Cikgu Azmi will flash the summary of the what we call draft declaration, and he will guide us, inshallah, what are the declaration that we will put forward, the outcome of this conference. And before we break for the afternoon for our Asar, we would like to expedite the press conference forward so that we don't have to come back here again. I think we would like to give opportunity for people to take a break, perhaps go back, and I really do encourage you, do come back after Maghrib, inshallah, to hear a much more stimulating discussion. And I can assure you, Brother Ahmed Fahmi will be here to entertain you, to answer, and whatever question that you might have. So please, I appreciate your cooperation to be, stand put. Let's hear Cikgu Azmi, and he will guide us through the draft declaration. And for the press, immediately after that, we will have a quick press conference, and you can answer whatever question that we have and direct it to the organizers. So, without further ado, inshallah, I will call upon Cikgu Azmi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Brother Said. The honored guest, Brother Fahmi. I think this is a very congested time. I've always faced this problem. But let's just do it for this time. And it is very crucial that this conference is going to produce something very strong in its message. We know that our meeting is not really a high profile in that sense, but if we manage to get this into the media, and then we do a lot of paperwork and meetings and demonstration of our opinions to governments, I think we will make an impact. I've tried my very best to take all your points and some even ideas from Brother Fahmi when we were talking, and I've come up with something about 50 points. So it's going to be a bit, this is, it's yet to be polished, but I hope we can get consensus on this. Okay, let us try it on this. We call it the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on the Egypt coup. We, the people participating in the regional and international conference on Egypt massacre, democracy and people's rights here in Kuala Lumpur, this is Subang, but we say it's Kuala Lumpur, in August 30th, 2013, number one, determined to advance the goals of justice and peace for all in the interest of all humanity around the world. In one voice, we loudly condemn the massacre of civilians by the military and the detention and torture of demonstrators, expressing their protest against the coup and denial of the democratic rights of the people of Egypt. We reject the labeling of the demonstrators against the coup as terrorists, and the excessive crackdown by the military resulted in the killings of innocent civilians, even while they were praying and seeking refuge in Al-Fatah Mosque. The language and the words may not be too perfect, so we'll polish on that. We express our deep anger and disappointment of millions of our people at the US refusal to acknowledge the ouster of Egypt's first elected president, Dr. Mohamed Morsi, by the Egyptian armed forces, led by General Abdel Fattah Khalil al-Sisi, as a coup, and also not stopping all aid to the illegal government in accordance with the United States law. We believe that US special relationship with the Egyptian military was to ensure the primary duty of Egypt after the 1978 Camp David Accords, that is to protect Israel's security. We abhor the state-owned media, Egypt, the state-owned media of Egypt, which has been instigating and promoting violence against the Muslim Brotherhood and protesters who reject the coup. The violence would not have happened without the consent of the US. We are convinced that the June 30th, 2013 demonstration leading to the military coup was a counter-revolution for the old guards to take over the reins of power from a democratically elected president and to subvert the democratic process initiated by the January 25th revolution. We acknowledge the voices of the people in Egypt and everywhere in the world who are opposing the July 3rd coup and saluting them for their courage to stand up against dictatorship regimes under military rule. We recognize the status of people's rights in Egypt has advanced after the January 25th, 2011 revolution, but that progress has been hijacked by the military regime backed by the US and some Arab leaders in a conspiracy initiated by the former Hosni Mubarak supporters to undermine the genuine will of the people. We deplore and condemn with the strongest words that the massacre and oppression against civilians in Egypt by the military operation is exacerbated by the inaction of the international agencies, especially the UN and the UN Security Council, which had grave consequences affecting the lives of majority of the Egyptians. We regret that still many Muslim countries, except Turkey, have yet to condemn the coup and pressure the interim government, so-called interim government, to surrender the country to a democratically elected government. We also regret the US directly, indirectly supports the new regime for their interests, namely control of oil resources and pressure from Israel. We strongly believe this is part of the grand agenda to limit or suppress the Islamic movement by dividing the Muslim population. The rise of Islam to them is a threat to Western secular powers. We dedicate ourselves unreservedly to respond effectively to the current oppressive Egyptian military crackdown on the anti-coup demonstrators and condemn the atrocities and the consequence of the military action commanded by General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, which have left thousands killed and injured. We reaffirm our commitment to advance the rights and dignity of the Egyptians for a free and independent civilian rule as enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and other international human rights instruments. The empowerment and advancement of civil rule and democracy and aspirations of the people of Egypt based on the principles guaranteed in Islam and enshrined in the UN Charter. Deplore leaders of several of the Arab nations who have joined Israel in an informal alliance that is backing Egypt's de facto military government. They slavishly partner alongside Israel's representatives seeking to persuade the US and EU not to levy sanctions on Egypt. Commit to focus on the unity of the Ummah to challenge the leadership of nations and institutions who support dictatorships and hereditary rulers backing the military coup. We are convinced that the free and fair Egypt parliamentarians and presidential election after the 2011 revolution is a legitimate decision by the majority people of Egypt. The nullification of the elected parliamentarians by the Egypt judiciary and the ouster and coup by the military is an aggression on the will of the people and a violation of the principles of democracy and denial of the human rights of the people of Egypt. The consequent illegal detention of Dr. Mohamed Morsi as the democratically elected president is the ultimate violation of the rights of the Egyptian people to instate civil rule, as was the determination of the 2011 uprising, which called for regime change and disposal of the dictatorship of Hosni Mubarak. We are determined to launch an international campaign to demand that the Egyptian military rule should end and that democracy should be restored and all suppressions targeting the anti-coup demonstrators must cease. To unite and show our strength of solidarity with the people of Egypt who are standing up against the tyrannical military regime. We are determined to ensure that the rights of the people of Egypt to demand for the reinstatement of Dr. Mohamed Morsi is the rightful president of Egypt is legitimate. To support all efforts to protest against the oppression executed by the military regime in Egypt that is targeting demonstrators and the Muslim Brotherhood. We call on the restoration of the legitimacy of the democratically elected President Dr. Mohamed Morsi and those responsible for all violent acts to be investigated and brought to justice under the law. We call for the halt of all intimidation by the Egyptian security forces and the hired thugs targeting individuals or groups under the pretext of waging war against terrorists. The release of those who were detained, tortured, and those who were victims of the violent and brutal crackdown should be justly compensated. Once the legitimate President Morsi is reinstated, a plan for reconciliation of all parties should be initiated. We urge for a concerted effort from all civil societies in the world, and in particular the region, to galvanize a worldwide protest through demonstration and registering their official rejection of the Egypt coup by the military regime. We urge for the people of Egypt to rise up against the military regime and to topple the dictatorship of the regime and demand to stop the massacre by the security forces. We demand that the UN Secretary General to call for an immediate emergency meeting of the UN Security Council to take action, including under the Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, to stop the mass killings and to restore democracy. This chapter allows the UN Security Council to take stern action, including sanctions and military operations to stop the killings by the military and police of Egypt. We call on the OIC and the Arab League to condemn and suspend the membership of Egypt as that taken by the African Union. We also call on the Malaysian and Indonesian government to condemn the carnage and mass killings of innocent civilians by the military regime of Egypt and to take initiatives to urge UN and the OIC to halt the massacre and reinstate democracy in Egypt. We also call Malaysian, and I think it's not Indonesian. When I typed this, I was listening to Pak Suripto, so I thought there was only Indonesians here. I forgot that I should type all other countries. We urge all NGOs and civil societies to hold mass demonstrations at the Egyptian embassies to demand to stop the killings and restore democracy. We call on all members of parliaments in the region and all associations of parliamentarians around the world to pressure Egypt to stop persecution and oppression on the anti-coup demonstrators. We have decided to establish a regional joint secretariat to address the Egypt coup and to launch a coordinated international campaign to free Egypt from dictatorship rule by the military regime, to initiate a call to all governments to demand the UN Security Council to sanction Egypt, to advocate governments to review their position and relationship with Egypt until the democratic rights and freedom of the people of Egypt be resumed, to prepare an international call to the UN Human Rights Council to establish a commission of inquiry for the establishment of evidences to be filed in the International Criminal Court. Brothers and sisters, these are the wordings. The points are there. The sentences may not be right. The emphasis, probably I've captured some of the spirit, but if you allow me to be mandated with other few people to polish this declaration, then this would be our declaration for this conference. So I'm proposing for this declaration for few feedback from you. If there's any, otherwise you give us the mandate and then we'll firm this up and then we will announce this declaration in a much more proper way. But today we're going to also announce to the press that this is the resolution that we have taken. Any feedback? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we can change it to International Joint Secretary. All right? We'll amend that. Right, international. Yes. And Brother Ahmad says that we pray and come back. Are you willing to come back? Yeah, maybe. It's You want to make some amendments and suggestions? Some. Yeah. Oh, you want more diplomatic also, that's the thing. There may be some people on that. So anyway, we note that. Any feedbacks else? And yeah. International. To establish an international, International Joint Secretariat. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, we need to. Declaration should be out. Okay. My problem is, people, are you ready to come back after Asar? Yes, Doctor, sila. Please, please.
I think we should do it today. I mean, to have a very handbag, 48 hours, you know, it's a lagging effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, I know. As for the press to press consumption, probably they are not interested in all this. Sometimes there's some duplication also. But when we speak to the press, then they will pick up like these 5 or 6 most important points. But as a declaration to be forwarded to governments and to institutions, I think a little bit of elaboration on certain points should be inserted. But yes, I think it's a bit too long. Maybe we can cut it to 20 points. We can do it. Yeah, we can also do that. Some of the points are, as I said, some of the points are duplicating. So we can, you know, what we need are just what are the key issues, and then you will then help the secretariat to sort of jive the thing into pointed forms. Because when I heard the presentation, I sort of just write down whatever is said, and then I try to pick up and then I type. And I know it's like too lengthy. I didn't have the time to even vet the whole thing. Any more suggestions? You don't want the word angry, you don't want the word condemn. Yeah, you just want it to say, please don't do this, please come back and talk to us. Or do you want to do that or what?
We've gone beyond diplomacy.
I take your note. I mean, there are some things that you can. Uncle Muhyiddin, do you have anything on this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know, Brother Ahmad, working on this, it will take a long time if you do it here. What I suggest is that we are going to meet the press and tell these are the major points. These are 4 points that we are stressing. You know, yeah, the Secretariat.
Secretariat, condemnation must be one. Support of
Free the people detained and
then the international community.
Okay.
So if we cluster it to a few segments, then it becomes very clear.
Right.
I think the points are all there.
Yeah.
To be fair to Cikgu Azmi, he's just listing
Yeah.
down the list.
Yeah. As far as meeting the press, we can do it in that way. So our point is that we don't have the time to even have a press release. So they will take it verbatim. This is our 4 points. Okay? And this declaration will not be given to them, to the press yet, because we want to work on it a little bit more. Would that be fine? Huh? If you want me to have another conference, I can call you to come again. No problem. People are dying each day, and our work is just having conferences. That's the work. Pak Suripto, any suggestions on this? Yeah, okay. Anybody else? So if that is sort of generally agreed, taking note of Brother Ahmad had concern, we'll work on it with some changes. Don't worry, Brother Ahmad. We have to face reality that the brutality is unacceptable. It's really beyond anything can imagine. Anyone can imagine how they slaughter these people. So with this, we have another session. I will give it back to the MC because we have a special guest before we wind up. But my closing speech is that I would like to convey my heartiest gratitude to all of you who have made your time to come and to listen and to participate. This is really, something that we were looking forward to have. We have decided to have it, and alhamdulillah we did, but it is not to the expectation and anybody would want to. But at this is another effort that we have launched, and the guests that we have, Brother Fahmi is here, and we are so thankful to him to be able to make it all the way. And to all the organizers, my brother YB Dato' Kamaruddin, Ustaz Abdul Ghani Samsudin, Dr. Said, and all my teams, my brothers and sisters here from Shukri, Raja, and Zaim, and our girls, we have Hazlina and Hafsar, and many others who were 3-4 nights were doing this work. Thank you so much. You are doing a great work. We have also Brother Dr. Ahmad also doing some work during the night. So thank you so much. I give it back to the MC.
Okay, thank you, Cikgu Azmi. We will have a short break for Asar prayer. But before that, shall we give away the token of appreciation for our guest of honor, Ahmad Fahmi? Yes, please. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yes, please. And now, inauguration of MAPIM Award Care Ummah Ambassador to Dato' Dr. Che Rosmi Cik Din. So, yes, we would like to call upon.
With us is Dr. Cik Rosmi Cik Din. Now, he's the philanthropist of the country. He's been with MAPIM for the last probably 5-6 months ago. He's been donating a huge amount of money for us to do work in Gaza. He's now helping us a lot, even in now he says he's very concerned about Egypt, and Gaza is also in bad situation. Then he called us and say, I want to donate, and this is a significant sum of money. As an appreciation, we award him from MAPIM what we call the Care Ummah Ambassador Award from MAPIM to thank him for his contribution. The amount is 50,000 ringgit to Egypt and 50,000 ringgit to Gaza.
Okay, we can do the press conference now. We do a quick press conference, then after that insyaAllah all of us will go to the Dewan Solat. Kita tunaikan apa ni sembahyang solat asar berjemaah insyaAllah.
Bersejarah kerana inilah persidangan antarabangsa yang telah diusahakan oleh gabungan pelbagai pihak, dan kami telah mengadakan usaha perbincangan pembentangan sepanjang 1 hari, dan alhamdulillah nampaknya penyertaan perwakilan telah dapat memenuhi ekspektasi. Dan persidangan ini yang kita panggil persidangan tergempar, iaitu pembunuhan awam, demokrasi dan hak rakyat Mesir. Kita telah membuat suatu persetujuan paling tidak 4 poin yang penting. Pertama yang saya ingin beritahu ialah ketegasan kita dan juga pernyataan kita yang tidak berbelah bagi untuk mengutuk dan mengecam apa yang berlaku di Mesir sekarang ni sejak daripada rampasan kuasa. Ini adalah perlakuan yang di luar peri kemanusiaan. Bukan sahaja dia telah membunuh demokrasi, tetapi telah benar-benar melakukan tindakan ganas yang tidak boleh ditoleransi. Poin yang kedua yang kami telah bersepakat ialah kita melihat bahawa tindakan selanjutnya ialah melancarkan suatu kempen antarabangsa untuk memastikan ada tindakan yang lebih tegas terhadap apa yang berlaku di Mesir, terutama perbuatan jenayah, pembunuhan, penangkapan yang tidak selaras dengan undang-undang. Ini semua adalah sesuatu yang tidak boleh kita terima, dan kita mengatakan bahawa dunia mesti bertindak ke atas Mesir, rejim militeri yang ada sekarang. Kita juga menyatakan yang keempat bahawa kami menolak interim government ini, dan juga menolak label mereka mengatakan penunjuk perasaan adalah teroris. Kami mengatakan bahawa kerajaan yang ada sekarang ada kerajaan tidak sah, kerajaan yang tidak harus ada apa-apa hubungan dengan mana-mana negara. Jadi kita membuat ketegasan bahawa semua negara harus melihat semula perhubungan dengan yang dikatakan interim government yang ada sekarang. Yang terakhir, kami merumuskan bahawa Sekretariat bersama antarabangsa untuk isu rampasan kuasa di Mesir itu akan ditubuhkan, dan kami bercadang untuk mengadakan suatu gerakan besar-besaran supaya Mesir mendapat tekanan sehingga dia memulihkan semula demokrasi dan membebaskan Presiden Morsi dan semua tahanan-tahanan yang ada sekarang yang dilakukan oleh tentera. Jadi kita tidak ada kompromi dalam hal itu. Mereka mesti ditekan, Mesir mesti ditekan sehingga akhirnya the restoration of democracy is resumed. Jadi itulah 4 perkara yang kami nak tekankan. Ada nak bertanya apa-apa? Ya.
Yes, thank you very much. The president is Mohamed Morsi and is still the president. He is still the legitimate, elected, democratically elected president in Egypt. So we cannot assume that there is a president after him. He is a man who should come, we should get him back to his position and his legitimate situation with the constitution, with the parliament, and then we can discuss the roadmap away from the military coup. So we should not assume that there is a second president and agree about what happened. Because if we agree if we think that there is a second president, we can, can tell you there are many candidates can run for the president, but now we are in a situation to regain the president, to bring him back to his position, to bring legitimacy back, democracy back, freedom back, political participation back, and then anything can be discussed regarding the country, reformation, reconciliation, whatsoever. We cannot go to election now and participate under these conditions. What we agreed that we declared a military coup, a bloody military coup. There is a lot of bloodshed, a lot of massacres, a lot of wounded people, a lot of political leaders in jail, in prison, and there is also a shutdown of all satellite and TV channels of the opposition parties and Islamic parties. We cannot run into an election under these conditions. So we have to first regain the climate for freedom, for democracy. We have to regain the legitimacy back, then we can run into a fair election.
Ya. Ada soalan lagi? RTM pun ada ni. RTM ke TV. TV Hikmah pun ada. Ada apa-apa nak tanya? Thailand White Channel, do you want to ask anything? All the way from Bangkok. Yes. Political interest.
I think this is one of the also fabricated news. The fact that Freedom Justice Party is like any political party has a renaissance plan for Egypt, for the whole country, to reform the whole country, to rebuild, to renovate, to develop, to introduce the scientists and professors and technocrats of the whole country, not only the FJP members. They work for the whole nation, not for their own interest, as they said. And I think this is their part, or their right is to practice as other political parties in a good climate of freedom, justice and legitimacy. But what has been said is untrue, is not true at all.
Okay. So, tak ada lagi? Ya. Dr. Razmi.
Setakat ni alhamdulillah kita dengan MAPIM dan betul juga dengan Ikram. Dengan Ikram kita bagi dana 350,000, 100,000 untuk Mesir dan 250,000 untuk Syria. Dari MAPIM alhamdulillah kita bagi 100,000, 10,000 untuk Mesir dan 50,000 untuk Gaza. Dan kita terbuka untuk kerjasama mana-mana NGO yang committed dalam perjuangan untuk ummah. InsyaAllah sama ada di Malaysia ataupun di peringkat internasional. Doktor rasa ini sebab doktor faham tentang Islam itu sendiri. Jadi infak, zakat, derma ni adalah satu tuntutan, kewajipan, dan ialah punca ekonomi Islam itu sendiri. Jadi doktor seorang ahli perniagaan, niaga sikit. Jadi doktor rasa satu cara yang paling bijak untuk doktor jam tu dah become terlalu apa yang doktor cita-citakan adalah dengan cara bina ekonomi Islam. Dan doktor doktor buat sekali sebagai role model untuk ummah. Jadi kalau kita, kenapa Islam lemah? Kerana Islam kita tidak mengamalkan ekonomi Islam. Kita melihat zakat itu satu punishment, satu kewajipan, bukan satu keperluan. Sedangkan zakat, infak itu satu keperluan untuk kita menjana pendapatan. Dan kita sebagai umat Islam, kita harus faham ada benda yang kita tidak boleh fikir dengan akal kita. Bila Allah Ta'ala menjanjikan mereka yang mengeluarkan zakat derma itu akan senang, akan dibantu dan mendapat keuntungan 10 kali lipat, mungkin 10 kali lipat, mungkin 7 kali lipat, mungkin lebih, back to back, duit ke duit, money to money, dan yang lain-lain lagi. Jadi kita agak sangsi kerana kita tidak pernah melakukan dengan serius. Sekarang ini doktor melakukan apa yang difirmankan ini secara serius. Sebab tu doktor mula infak agak besar, jumlah jutaan ringgit, dan doktor rasa InsyaAllah doktor akan berjaya. Dan kalau doktor berjaya, kita akan infak lagi banyak. Sebab kita nampak ini satu perniagaan yang cukup menguntungkan. Jadi doktor tertarik dengan infak ni kerana keyakinan doktor pada agama Islam itu sendiri. Dan semestinya untuk berjuang macam ni, kita perlukan dana yang besar. Yang tu nampak di situlah doktor punya kebersamaan dengan semua platform NGO. Sebab doktor tak mungkin nak boleh create NGO, sebab doktor punya bidang perniagaan. Tapi doktor boleh bersama berjuang dengan memberi dana dan mungkin pandangan dan mungkin juga kekuatan segi keberanian keberanian untuk mengetuarakan satu isu secara serius dan berkesan. Mungkin insya-Allah depan hari dengan kekuatan kewangan yang doktor ada, doktor mampu untuk mengeluarkan satu isu, main satu isu dan pastikan isu ini selesai dengan seperti yang kita nak, dengan kadar yang cepat dan berkesan. Kadang-kadang kita keluarkan isu tapi isu ni tak ke mana. Sekadar cakap-cakap saja. Jadi kekurangan ini yang kita rasa, doktor rasa bagi doktor ekonomi play important roles dalam capai kejayaan sebagai kita dalam perjuangan NGO untuk perjuangan apa-apa perjuangan, terutama perjuangan Islam macam ni. InsyaAllah. Ini kata doktor perlu buktikan kebenaran firman ni. Firman ni memang dah benar, tapi kita perlu buktikan dalam era moden ni secara konduktif, secara yang betul-betul diyakini. Orang boleh tengok bagaimana kita mampu berjaya lakarkan apa yang kita fahami ni. Dan doktor sendiri insya-Allah memang target doktor untuk jadi one of billionaire kat Malaysia ni. Dan doktor yakin insya-Allah dalam masa 2 atau 3 tahun doktor mampu menjadi billionaire. Dan kalau billionaire ni tercapai dengan kaedah infak ni, jadi tak ada masalah untuk doktor tu infak. Dan doktor rasa ini mesti menjadi satu role model untuk mana-mana jutawan lain ataupun businessman lain, tanpa perlu kita beri paksaan atau apa, sebab semua orang nak berjaya, insya-Allah.
Terima kasih. Saya ucap banyak terima kasih kepada media dan saya harap dapat membantu untuk kita highlight event kita tadi, kerumusannya dan juga sumbangan daripada Dr. Rozmi. Saya ucap banyak terima kasih. InsyaAllah kita akan bertemu pada masa yang lain. Sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.